Welcome to 5 Minutes to Midnight, where we share creepy horror stories. Tonight, we bring you a spine-tingling reimagining of one of Mexico's most infamous urban legends, the Vampire Tree of Guadalajara. This twisted tale unfolds in the late 19th century, a time when fear and superstition ruled the nights of this historic city. What begins as the story of a wealthy, mysterious stranger accused of unspeakable crimes takes a dark and unexpected turn, revealing betrayal, curses, and a horrifying secret buried deep beneath the roots of the infamous tree. As we dive into this gripping reinterpretation, prepare yourself for a tale of deception, vengeance, and a curse that refuses to die. So dim the lights, settle in, and let us take you into the shadowy depths of the Panteón de Belén. The Vampire Tree of Guadalajara awaits.
In 1880, Guadalajara was a city of contrasts. By day, its streets bustled with merchants, farmers, and campesinos going about their business under the warm Mexican sun. By night, the city seemed to breathe differently, with its plazas dimly lit by flickering oil lamps and the air thick with whispers. This was especially true during the final months of the year when a peculiar fear gripped the town. Dogs and cats began to disappear, and when they were found, their lifeless bodies were drained of blood. Whispers turned to terror when human corpses began appearing in the same condition. At the heart of the city's leadership was Mayor Ignacio Torres, a figure beloved by many for his calm demeanor and decisive leadership. But Ignacio was not as he seemed. Beneath his composed exterior lurked a dark secret. He was the very monster the townspeople feared. By day, he wore the mask of a compassionate leader, calming fears and resolving disputes. By night, his hunger drove him to prowl the city, his thirst for blood insatiable. Ignacio had been careful for years, keeping his monstrous nature hidden. But as the disappearances grew, the townspeople's fear intensified, and he realized he needed a scapegoat. The arrival of Don Santiago de Aranda, a wealthy Spaniard, provided the perfect opportunity. Santiago had recently purchased a grand hacienda on the outskirts of Guadalajara. Handsome, wealthy, and pale, he rarely ventured out during the day and was often seen strolling through the plazas at night with beautiful young women on his arm. Women found him charming, but men distrusted him because he was rich and good-looking. It also didn't help that his arrival in the town coincided with the beginning of the bloodless deaths. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some claimed Santiago had made his fortune through dark, unmentionable means back in Spain. Others whispered that his fortune was the least of his secrets, and that he was, in fact, a vampire. Ignacio knew he needed to know more about this stranger if he was going to frame him. He decided to confront Santiago directly. Accompanied by 2 constables, the mayor visited the Spaniard's hacienda one evening. The house was as strange as its owner, an imposing structure with tall iron gates, overgrown gardens, and windows perpetually shrouded by heavy drapes. Santiago greeted them with an unsettling charm. Dressed impeccably in a dark suit, he welcomed the mayor and his guards into his parlor, offering them wine and polite conversation. Ignacio questioned him about his habits and the rumors of bloodless bodies found near his property. Santiago smiled faintly and dismissed the allegations as baseless gossip. Yet, as Ignacio spoke, he couldn't shake the feeling that Santiago's dark eyes were studying him too closely, as if peeling away his defenses. Santiago said to Ignacio, "Mayor, have we met before? I do believe I've seen you out and about late at night." "What dark magic are you up to?" he said slowly and deliberately, his lips curling into an unsettling smile. The visit left Ignacio more uneasy than before. He feared that Santiago knew his secret and would reveal it publicly. Ignacio seized on the rumors and quietly stoked the townspeople's suspicions. He spoke in hushed tones to influential citizens, planting seeds of doubt and fear about Santiago. "Have you noticed how pale he is?" Ignacio would whisper. "And always out at night. He arrived just when the killings began." Soon the townspeople's unease turned to anger. When a young woman who had been seen with Santiago was found dead in the plaza, the mob's fury exploded. Ignacio, feigning reluctance, led the vigilantes to Santiago's hacienda. That night, Santiago was dragged from his home, bewildered and defiant. He proclaimed his innocence, but his words were drowned out by the crowd's cries for justice. Ignacio played his part masterfully, standing just far enough back to appear impartial, but close enough to ensure the mob did not falter. The healer Doña Ramona declared that the only way to kill a vampire was to drive a stake through its heart. A branch was hastily cut from a nearby camichin tree, sharpened into a crude stake. Santiago's protests turned to rage as the mob tied him to a post in the Panteón de Belén cemetery. "You fools!" Santiago shouted. "You blind, gullible fools! Your true monster walks among you, and you follow him like sheep." His piercing gaze landed on Ignacio, and for a moment the mayor felt exposed, as though Santiago could see the truth. But Santiago never revealed Ignacio's secret. Instead, he spat a curse. "Mark my words, Guadalajara. My death will not bring you peace. The roots of this injustice will grow, and one day I will return to bring ruin upon this city. And you, Mayor Ignacio, your name will rot like the carrion you truly are." The mob, too frenzied to question Santiago's words, plunged the stake into his chest. Blood spurted from the wound as Santiago gasped his last breath. The crowd cheered, and Ignacio stood silently, hiding the faintest of smiles. Santiago's body was sealed in a concrete tomb, and for a time the city breathed easier. Months later, strange things began to happen. The camichin stake left in Santiago's chest began to sprout. Tiny leaves emerged, and roots grew, cracking the concrete tomb. Over the years the tree flourished, its gnarled branches twisting skyward, its roots wrapping around the grave like chains. The townspeople began to notice strange phenomena around the tree. Its leaves, when plucked, oozed a red liquid that smelled of iron. Some claimed to hear whispers in the breeze when standing near it at night, a low, menacing murmur that chilled them to the bone. Superstition took hold, and the townspeople came to fear the tree, calling it the Vampire Tree of Guadalajara. Offerings of flowers and candles appeared at its base, left by those who sought to appease the spirit trapped within. Years turned into decades, and the legend of the vampire tree grew. Parents warned their children never to disturb it, for they believed that cutting it down would release Santiago's vengeful spirit. The Panteón de Belén became a destination for the curious and the brave, drawn by tales of a supposed vampire who had cursed their city. And whatever happened to Mayor Ignacio Torres? Interestingly enough, he disappeared the day after the townspeople buried Don Santiago de Aranda. A few months later, there were new rumors in a nearby town of dead animals with their bodies drained of blood. Had the vampire returned? Perhaps he had never left. Even today the tree stands as a grim sentinel in the Panteón de Belén, its twisted branches casting eerie shadows. The legend persists. If the tree is cut down, Santiago's curse will awaken, and the vampire will rise again. And though few remember Mayor Ignacio, the tree's roots hold the truth, tangled in blood and betrayal, waiting to unearth the monster that still walks among us.
Welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're going somewhere a little different. We're headed down to Mexico, Guadalajara to be exact, back in the 1880s, for a story that blends history, mystery, and a touch of the supernatural. We're looking at a reimagining of a classic vampire legend, as told by Leela Ravensdale. Well, get ready for a twist, because this one centers around a charming mayor with a hidden dark side, a mysterious Spaniard who arrives at the worst possible time, and a tree that grows from a vampire's grave. Have you ever heard of a tree with such a creepy backstory?
I haven't. Ravensdale really brings Guadalajara in the late 19th century to life, though. It's bustling by day, markets overflowing with vibrant colors and aromas, people going about their daily lives. But at night, a sense of dread creeps in. Animals are found drained of blood, then people. It leaves the whole city on edge.
It's a chilling scene to imagine. And right into this atmosphere of fear walks our vampire, Don Santiago de Aranda, a wealthy Spaniard, immediately the focus of suspicion.
Yeah, he's a really intriguing character. Handsome, reserved, seems to prefer the night. He checks all the classic vampire boxes. But what's really fascinating is how his arrival lines up perfectly with the start of those mysterious deaths. Talk about bad timing.
Right. Makes you wonder, is he really a monster or just an easy target for a community already gripped by fear?
He's definitely an outsider in Guadalajara. All those whispers about his wealth and nocturnal habits spread through the community like wildfire.
It's like throwing gasoline on an already burning fire. But here's where the story takes a truly unexpected turn. The seemingly upstanding mayor, Ignacio Torres, well, he's got a secret even darker than anyone suspects.
Oh, yeah. He's a vampire himself. And suddenly, it becomes so much more than just a monster tale. He needs a scapegoat, you see. One to take the fall, to divert attention as the townspeople get closer and closer to uncovering the truth. Don Santiago, with all those rumors swirling around him already, makes the perfect target.
So what happens? Does the mayor just point a finger at Santiago?
Oh no, it's much more clever than that. Ignacio takes a couple of constables with him, pays a visit to Santiago at his hacienda. Ravensdale describes this grand, almost Gothic-looking house. Overgrown gardens and heavy drapes covering the windows. You can practically feel the tension as these two men face off.
Uh-oh.
What happens next?
Well, there's this one line that really sends chills down my spine. Santiago looks at Ignacio. Completely at ease in his own home, he asks, "Have we met before? I believe I have seen you out and about late at night. What dark magic are you up to?"
It's like he's hinting that he knows Ignacio's secret.
Wow. That must have thrown the mayor off balance.
For sure. But Santiago doesn't stop there. He even offers Ignacio refreshments. It's like he's enjoying this little cat and mouse game.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So unsettling. But as unsettling as this encounter is for Ignacio, it's nothing compared to what he's about to unleash on Don Santiago.
Ignacio is a master manipulator, you see. He understands how powerful fear is and how to exploit it. Instead of just outright accusing Santiago, he starts dropping these subtle hints, little seeds of doubt about his wealth, those nocturnal habits, the timing of his arrival, all very calculated.
So he's playing on existing prejudices, fanning the flames that are already burning in the community.
Exactly. And then tragedy strikes. This young woman who was seen with Santiago is found dead. And this becomes the tipping point for the people of Guadalajara.
Oh, no.
Yeah, this death, fueled by grief and a thirst for vengeance, pushes the community over the edge. They descend upon Santiago's hacienda like a mob, fueled by a blind need for retribution.
It's heartbreaking. Ravensdale depicts this chaotic scene. Santiago dragged from his home, his pleas of innocence completely ignored. This mob, consumed by fear and anger, convinced they found their monster. They take Santiago to the Panteón de Belén cemetery, ready to carry out their own twisted form of justice.
It's chilling, isn't it? A reminder of how quickly mob mentality can take hold, how individuals can lose themselves in a crowd, driven by fear and rage.
It makes you think about how easily it could happen anywhere, even today. What's particularly fascinating here is that even in his final moments, as the mob prepares to stake him, Santiago remains defiant. He curses the mob, calls them blind fools, and it accuses them of being led by the true monster Mayor Ignacio.
It's a powerful moment. Even in his dying breath, he tries to expose Ignacio, to reveal the truth that's been hidden beneath the mask of respectability. But the mob, blinded by fear, refuses to listen.
It makes you wonder if there's a part of Santiago that wants to make sure his death won't be in vain, that even in death, he will have some sort of power over those who wronged him. And then something truly bizarre happens.
What's that?
The stake used to kill Santiago starts to sprout leaves, and over time, it grows into a full-fledged tree, cracking Santiago's tomb. It becomes known as the Vampire Tree, a symbol of both fear and fascination. Now, that's a haunting image. A tree literally growing from the very instrument of his death. What do you think Ravensdale is trying to tell us with this strange phenomenon?
On one hand, it's like a very literal representation of Santiago's curse on the city, but also speaks to something deeper, I think. The persistence of truth, maybe. or the fear of consequences, even though the mob tried to silence Santiago. To bury the truth along with his body, it literally bursts forth in this unexpected and undeniable way.
So it's not just about a vengeful spirit, but also about the things we try to bury, the secrets that refuse to stay hidden.
Exactly. And the fact that the tree continues to grow, to thrive even, suggests that the truth will always find a way to come to light, no matter how deeply it's buried. And then there are the offerings people leave at the base of the tree. Flowers, candles, even small trinkets. It seems to point to this complicated relationship between fear and reverence.
It's like they're trying to appease the spirit of Santiago, to acknowledge the wrong that was done to him.
That's one interpretation. Perhaps they're hoping to ward off his vengeful spirit. Or maybe it's a way of seeking forgiveness for the actions of their ancestors. It's as though the tree itself has become a sort of shrine, a focal point for the guilt and fear that linger in the community.
And it all circles back to that chilling scene at the cemetery, the mob mentality that took hold and led to Santiago's death. Ravensdale doesn't shy away from showing us how easily a crowd can be swayed by a charismatic leader, even one with sinister intentions.
This story is like a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked fear and prejudice. Ignacio, the supposed pillar of the community, able to manipulate the townspeople, exploit their fears, and direct their anger toward an innocent man. It makes you think about how often this kind of manipulation might happen in our own lives, how susceptible we all are to these kinds of tactics.
We see it all the time, don't we? Whether it's in politics, social media, or even just our everyday interactions. There's always someone trying to sway our opinions, to capitalize on our fears and insecurities.
Precisely. Ravensdale's story might be set in 19th century Mexico, but the themes it explores are incredibly relevant today. It's a cautionary tale about the importance of critical thinking, of questioning authority, and of recognizing the signs of manipulation before it's too late.
Speaking of manipulation, let's shift our focus back to those classic vampire tropes that Ravensdale weaves into this story. Why do you think we're still so fascinated by vampires, even centuries after these legends first appeared?
Vampires represent something primal, don't they? They embody our deepest fears and desires, immortality, power, seduction, transgression, on a subconscious level. They tap into anxieties about mortality, the allure of the forbidden, and perhaps even a fascination with the darker aspects of human nature.
And in this story, we see those themes playing out in a very visceral way. Ignacio, the seemingly benevolent leader, is actually a predator lurking beneath the surface, preying on the innocent. And Santiago, the outsider, becomes the scapegoat, the victim of a society that's quick to judge and condemn based on appearances and rumors.
Exactly. And the fact that Santiago is portrayed as both charming and dangerous adds another layer to his character. He's not a one-dimensional monster. He's a complex figure who challenges our preconceived notions of good and evil. And even though he's ultimately a victim in this story, there's a part of him that fights back, that refuses to be silenced, even in death.
Which brings us back to Ignacio's fate. He vanishes after Santiago's death. And rumors of drained bodies begin to surface in a nearby town. It's almost as if his darkness has spread, hasn't it? Like a stain that can't be easily erased.
Ravensdale leaves that aspect of the story open to interpretation. Did Ignacio truly escape justice? Or is he simply biding his time, waiting for the right moment to strike again? It's that ambiguity that makes the story so unsettling. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable reality that evil often persists, that it can take on many forms and find new ways to thrive. And that sometimes, the most terrifying monsters are the ones hiding in plain sight.
We've been unpacking this tale of deception, mob mentality, and all those classic vampire tropes that just never get old.
It's a really layered story, isn't it? Blending history, folklore, and psychology all together. It really gets you thinking.
I keep coming back to that image of the tree growing from Santiago's stake. It's just such a powerful symbol of the things we try to repress, the truths that won't stay buried.
It also makes you think about the power of stories themselves. Legends like this one often change over time, taking on new meanings as they're passed down through generations. And in this case, Ravensdale has taken this classic vampire tale and given it a fresh perspective, weaving in themes of social justice, political corruption, and the dangers of unchecked power.
It's fascinating to think about what this story might have meant to the people of Guadalajara back then, in the 1880s. They were facing real-life anxieties about disease, poverty, and social upheaval. Maybe this legend provided an outlet for their fears, a way to deal with the uncertainty of their time.
It's definitely possible. Folklore often acts as a mirror, you see, reflecting a culture's anxieties and hopes. And in this case, the vampire tree might have been a way for them to understand the real threats they faced, like illness, the exploitation of the poor, abuse of power by those in charge.
And then there's the whole question of what happened to Mayor Ignacio. Vanishing into the night, rumors of drained bodies popping up somewhere else. He almost becomes like a phantom, a boogeyman, haunting the whole region. What do you make of that open ending?
I think it's brilliant. It highlights how sneaky evil can be. Even when you think you've defeated a threat, it can come back in ways you don't expect, often where you least expect it. It leaves you with this feeling of unease, right? A reminder that justice doesn't always prevail.
It also reinforces that idea, that the scariest monsters aren't always the ones with fangs and claws. Sometimes they're the ones hiding in plain sight, wearing a mask of respectability.
You got it. Exploiting trust, manipulating people for their own gain.
And that is a chilling thought to keep in mind as we go about our own lives, isn't it? It reminds us to be discerning, question authority, and be wary of those who promise easy solutions or exploit our fears for their own benefit. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the legend of the Vampire Tree of Guadalajara, we hope this deep dive has given you a new perspective on this legend, and that it sparks some thought-provoking questions of your own. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those lights on.